Good morning. This is Axel Merk, President and Chief Investment Officer of Merk Investments, with my morning update. I'll give you a brief snapshot here, what's happening with economic numbers, and then my interpretation of how this is all evolving. As you likely have heard, jobless claims were rather high this morning, 5.3 million this morning. That was lower than the so-called expectation and the whisper number. Not sure how exactly people can forecast the numbers in the current environment too precisely. I think it's all a bit of a guessing game. But some other numbers that were out, housing starts were out. They were down 22.3% versus 18.7% drop expected. Housing permits were down, quote unquote, only 6.8% versus 10.7% expected. And so with all that, as I speak, the S&P is currently dipping into negative territory here. The dollar is mixed with a gold spot up. Gold spot. The reason I hesitate is nowadays you have to look at various different prices. The gold futures up 13 points. The gold spot price is actually up 12 points now as well. But I do see different percentage numbers here on different screens. Anyway, more to the point here on the jobless claims, something that appeared to be popular on Twitter when I pointed out that those who still believe in a V-shaped recovery may want to consider this. Imagine you're a business that had to shut down in this environment. And so now you're given the quote unquote green light to open up again. What are you going to do? Odds are you're going to hire the essential employees to get up and running. And pun intended here or not, you need a minimum staff to get things running. But there are two things that will almost certainly, in my view at least, going to prevent you to hire everybody back that you had before. A, you don't have the revenue yet. So you're going to be reluctant. You want to see that actually people come back to your business. Patterns change, consumption patterns change, and you want to make sure that your customers will still come. And so some obviously will be luckier than others, but that will keep people back. And then the other one is, of course, that you've been bruised, right? You've survived the shock, assuming you open up your business, but your cash reserves are almost certainly down. And so in that sort of environment, you're going to be more hesitant to hire people. It was very different when we had this tit for tat on trade, as you may remember those days. People didn't lay off people, even though the business was affected. And the reason was they were, that's my interpretation anyway, that people were very reluctant to lay off people because unemployment was so low. And so if you laid somebody off, you didn't know whether you could hire them back should the winds on trade change again. And everybody knew that with the administration we have, changes could happen on short notice. And so you were riding it out if you could afford to. Now it's different. Now you're in full emergency mode. You have to hunker down, preserve the cash you have so you stay in business, get the government aid if it's available. And then yes, you're going to try to get things back up and running. So that's just something about that's one of the many reasons why I think a V-shaped recovery may be difficult. Then housing numbers were out. Well, obviously, right now, many people can't pay the rent. And just to clarify something, last week, I believe it was out that, 1/3 of New Yorkers don't pay the rent. And then the numbers were nationwide, similar trend. Indeed, a lot of people can't pay the rent right now, and there's a lot of hardship out there, but those numbers were exaggerated. First of all, it wasn't 66%, it was more like 69%, not that that's much better, but the baseline isn't 100%. On almost any month, not 100% are paying the rent. Indeed, when those statistics came out, it was about who pays in the first 5 days of the month. And so that number apparently historically hovers in the low 80% range. And so clearly we had about a 15% drop in people paying, and maybe that's going to exacerbate, but let's not dramatize things that more than they need to. The actual numbers are scary enough. Then one other item, lots more talk on opening the economy. I try to be political about the kind of the political implications of how that's discussed here. When I survey other news around the globe, notably in Europe, they have started to be very specific. Germany, for example, is discussing which specific types of companies can open up. That you'll need to have certain distancing and this and that, and that they'll first open these types of companies and these companies and these companies. Hairdressers, hair salons are allowed to open up as well in May. That's the current plan, and there may still be some back and forth. The point is that the talk about reopening the economy is becoming more specific. If you listen to the briefings of the governors on both the East and the West Coast, that wasn't specific yet. That was more showing that, hey, we work together, we'll do something. We'll need more specific things. And those things presumably will happen in the European countries that where I listen to the news. These things are indeed happening. That doesn't mean mistakes won't be made and so forth, but we need to move forward to that stage and so forth, right? And in the meantime, we get numbers that testing is going up. Uh, I am still very concerned that we do way too little to get this thing for the long term under control. But we're moving in the right direction there as well. Antibody testing has had apparently some setbacks as well because there are lots of tests out there that aren't very accurate. So all these are kinks on the road. If you look at financial markets, they don't worry about so much about the kinks. Indeed, the financial markets appear to be focused on usually on the sort of things that go well because they will overwhelm the index at some point, and so the technology-driven companies appear to be doing quite well and can operate in this sort of environment, and many are doing just fine. I was just an anecdote. I was walking to downtown Palo Alto here where I live, and I met an entrepreneur um, who sells noodles online, and she only started her business a few months ago, but she'd been working on that idea for a while. But her argument was, oh, all these prepackaged noodle things that you can buy. She's ethnically Vietnamese, has lived in Europe, has lived here, is an amazing entrepreneur. In any case, she has these instant noodles that taste amazingly good, and so especially in the current environment, people want to have a treat. They don't want to just have the noodles from the local Walmart or Trader Joe's or wherever one might go shopping. And so she was actually walking into the post office with a bunch of boxes. And so many small businesses, they do take care of their own fulfillment, so to speak, and are making things work. And so similarly, I'm sure if you work in your neighborhood, some takeout places for restaurants, they work reasonably well. The revenue is almost certainly dramatically down, but at least they're able to operate where others cannot. And so there will be new types of ways of doing business coming out of this. And similarly, of course, as any one of us, right? We are used to now getting used to working at home, and while we miss our offices, I would be very surprised if we go back to quote unquote normal right after this. That we're not going to try to mix and match and adapt some of the things and how to host meetings, especially meetings with others more globally, and get into new habits, and then with that, of course, change our consumption habits. And if I just look at myself at the various computer screens I have, I've been spending money on IT things because I need to have my IT infrastructure here up and running. And anyway, um, as I ramble on here, S&P is continues to be lower. The one thing to keep in mind is that we have these two forces. We have this amazing fiscal and monetary stimulus. Um, you may have heard Japan is contemplating to send the equivalent of about $1,000 to each citizen. I don't know whether that's just adults or everybody, but in any case, helicopter money, so to speak, making the rounds, being quite okay in the current environment everywhere. And then the thing that goes against it is that indeed this recovery is not going to be V-shaped, and there will be a ripple effect and fallout. And I think we just cannot even imagine yet what that is. And at the same time, the market is of course a discounting mechanism, right? And so what are we to say that things are going to work differently? What is priced in the market right this second? As far as investment strategy is concerned, on that note, yes, I should show you guys my disclosure. So let me just do that as I talk here. Um, as far as investment processes and so forth is concerned, as I've indicated before, we encourage everybody to follow a process. Um, and it's not that easy to follow a process. On our homepage at merkinvestments.com, there is um, we have a quiz. Actually, there currently we promote a webinar there. Um, at I believe you have at our advisory section on the website, you can find a quiz, an online quiz, and I'll next time I'll send me a note if you want to see what it is. Anyway, a quiz about how good you can assess probabilities. I think that's a good exercise to do in this sort of environment. Um, so to just see, can one assess probabilities? And I would think everybody has become a tad more humble given that what we've seen of late. But part of the reason why people choose professionals to help them is simply to have a holding hand to guide them so that their emotions are a little take them a little bit less. So anyways, just some food for thought. Be safe out there. Have a great day, and I'll try to do one of these again tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye.